Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Barbara Thompson, a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to our service. Oh, I'll get closer. Is this better? I'm still Barb. Welcome to our service. Unitarian Universalism encourages an open-ended search for meaning in life and a commitment to asking our values to shape our actions. We are a pluralistic religion that draws wisdom from many sources. We welcome all people to our community of whatever age, race, class, ethnicity, physical ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious background. We welcome especially those worshiping with us for the first time. Guests are welcome to participate in any activities in our community. Welcome team members are wearing green name badges and are ready to answer any questions you may have if you are a visitor or new to this congregation. Pastoral team members are wearing yellow name badges and are able to talk with you if you have life transitions or need assistance. We invite everyone to join us downstairs after service for coffee and snacks so that we can get to know each other better. Thank you for being with us today.
Good morning. I'm Lucia Almond, and I am one of the folks who did the second time around sale. And I want to thank the phenomenal volunteers. It was amazing how people showed up. We still have some things downstairs. And if you would like to go down and gather from what's left over, the remaining items, please do. We ask for a donation. A rule of thumb might be look at the price, you can tell the colors, and pay 70 or take off 75%, or a donation. There are a few things like furniture that we have to talk about, and then there are some native plants that one of our members donated, and that's the regular price. They're outside, and that's full price at this point. Also in the hallway, there's a rack of clothing. Just take what you may need from the clothing. Look that over and take whatever you need. The second to the last thing is we need people to help pack up afterwards. It's a laborious process, and there's usually 4 of us down there doing it. Please come and help pack a few boxes before you leave. And here's the commercial. You see all these things, pretty glass at sales, and nobody buys them. So I'm going to encourage you to take one and pay, $1 or $2. You know why? Because it will pretty up your life. You put some apples in here, or Easter eggs, or Christmas balls, or a candle. It will pretty up your life. All right, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Diann Herington, and I'm a third generation UU. I am a member of the choir, and I'm chair of the finance team, co-chair of archives, and a member of religious services team. That's a lot. So our theme for this summer was telling our stories. If you had to think of the greatest children's storyteller of all time, who comes to mind? Eric Carle, Shel Silverstein, Roald Dahl, Judy Blume, Beverly Cleary, all are extraordinary storytellers. But the Who's come to my mind. Not the band, but the Who's of Dr. Seuss fame. So this brings me to someone missing from our list, which is Theodore Geisel, also known as Dr. Seuss. In The Art of Dr. Seuss, Robert Chase Jr. writes, Dr. Seuss was a storyteller in the grandest sense of the word. Not only did he tell fantastical tales of faraway places, but he also gave us a unique visual language that carried his stories to new heights of artistic expression. It was that explosive energy of ridiculous fun that thrust Ted's works into otherworldly places, taking young and old alike on a ride that would become a critical reference point for most children from 1937 on, as well as for the adults who raised them. Nearly everybody has a significant Dr. Seuss memory. Many of today's top visual artists, poets, filmmakers, and authors cite Ted as one of their greatest influences. Indeed, what Walt Disney was to entertainment, Theodore Geisel was to art and literature. And I think he's right. Nearly everybody has a significant Dr. Seuss memory, and I'm sure you're all thinking of yours right now. By the end of our time together today, I hope you might have a new Dr. Seuss memory, one that links our free and responsible search for truth and meaning with some of Mr. Geisel's greatest works. So I'm excited to kind of explore that together today. And if you would join me in lighting our chalice, the words are up on the screen and also in your order of service. May the light of truth
illumine our minds. May the spark of love set our hearts on fire. May the flame of freedom burn brightly within us, now and always.
And now if you could rise in body and/or spirit for our opening song, which is number 1003, Where Do We Come From? And we're gonna do each line twice through and then sing the whole thing through? Okay, and then we'll sing the whole thing through just a bunch of times and we'll watch Gates for when to cut us off. Where we come from, where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Great job, everybody. If you could stay standing, we're going to greet everybody and welcome each other today. All right, and Ken is going to come up and give us some words for all ages.
I'm glad you said words and not wisdom, because that's not my forte. My mom and I are the readers in the family. And as I've said before, reading didn't come too easy to me. But we're the ones that actually enjoy going to the beach with a book and sitting down and reading and having a good time. And if you'd ask me what my favorite book series is, I would probably come up with some fanciful one about people riding dragons or carrying mythical swords or something like that. But if you ask my mom what my favorite book was, she would go back to age 3 and tell you that it was Marvin K. Mooney, Will You Please Go Now? This was a book that she started the foundations of me being able to read with. And it wasn't anything with the dragons, it wasn't anything with swords. It was a sing-song, funny book that, as all good parents, she would sit back and naturally mess words up. Well, this book says that Marvin K. Mooney has to go to the store right now. No, Mom, it says, I don't care how. And it would lay the groundwork. And these books have an entertainment value to them, but they also have a lot of learning properties to them. The sing-song way that Dr. Seuss would write would also help with rhyming and hearing definitions and hearing the tones and the flow of the sentence. And they would teach things like that. If you all remember some nursery rhymes, and I'm fairly certain every single one of you could remember the nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty. Because it flows, it has a flow to it, it has sing-song, it has rhymes. And rhymes play a very important part in the reading process. Now, I never really read this book to my mom. As much as she liked to say that she taught me this book and taught me how to read, I memorized this book. But that's what all kids do, because that's a pre-reading skill. You can see your 2-year-olds get a book, sit down, flop it out, see a page, and be like, ooh, this page says this. And they'll tell you exactly what's on the page. Now, all children are gifted, and especially yours who have read these books at the age of 2. but it's a very valuable pre-reading skill. And as crazy as the book may sound, they have a lot more value to it than just entertaining. And I just wanted to share that with you. I'm not going to share the book with you because it has a lot of fun pictures with it and a lot of those zany flying things, a Zazubowitz, which of course everybody knows is a bike with birds. But I wanted to share just a little bit of my favorite book and the memory of Mom every night reading it wrongly to me just so that she could hear me say the right words in the book. And if the kids would like to go downstairs, we'll do something else.
Dr. Seuss is probably one of the most widely recognized children's authors and illustrators of all time. His birthday is celebrated every year with Read Across America Week, in the elementary schools mostly, which celebrates readers of all ages though. I started looking into Dr. Seuss and his stories, and I thought, wow, this guy's a Unitarian. Like, he's you. Almost all of his stories have some sort of life lesson, many closely related to the things that we UUs keep close to our hearts. But actually, I did a little bit of research, and Dr. Seuss was not technically a Unitarian. He was actually raised as Missouri Lutheran and remained in the denomination, but he wasn't very active. And it's believed actually that he identified more with views similar to what we do as UUs, a little bit more liberal, maybe some agnostic views as well. I want to spend most of our time here talking today about the stories, but there were a few fun facts that I would like to share with you before we get into that. So 2 generations of Geisels made their living in Springfield, Massachusetts as master brewers, but they were forced to close their business forever due to prohibition. Because of that, his dad went on to be on the park board in Springfield, Massachusetts, and eventually became the superintendent of the parks. His dad would take him to the Springfield Zoo in Forest Park, which sparked Ted's love of drawing animals. His mother would encourage him to draw animal caricatures on the plaster walls of his bedroom. And any animals that met their demise in the zoo would actually live on through their bills, horns, and antlers, which were mailed to the Geisels' apartment and became exotic beaks and headdresses on his bizarre taxidermy sculptures. So you've all seen his illustrations. Imagine that being a taxidermy in this boy's room. Seuss is actually his middle name, and it's actually pronounced Soyce or Zoyce to rhyme with the word voice. And he tried correcting people a lot of times, and eventually after 100 times or so, everybody just started still saying Seuss, and he just accepted it that it was not going to be pronounced correctly. The pen name actually came about because he was the editor-in-chief of the humor magazine at Dartmouth, and he got let go due to an alcohol issue in his dorm room during Prohibition. And he didn't particularly like that, so he decided to submit articles under various pen names, one of which just being Seuss, and he wasn't really quite sure how that got past everybody because it definitely was his middle name, but he was still published under several different names. Later on, he added doctor to the beginning as kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference to the fact that he never finished the doctorate degree that he started. So that's where the Dr. Seuss comes from. Cat in the Hat was the book that really brought Dr. Seuss into the spotlight, but he'd actually been writing children's books for 20 years before that was published in 1957. He published over 60 children's books throughout his career, and when I started looking at some of the books, I couldn't stop thinking about how they related to our UU principles. So I'd like to take you on a journey of our 8 principles, but as Dr. Seuss books instead. So our first principle is the inherent worth of dignity of every person. I also really like that the UUA gives children's versions of the principles because growing up I never knew what any of these fancy words meant. So this one is, we believe that each and every person is important. And Horton Hears a Who is probably the best example of this principle. So the story begins with Horton the elephant swimming in a pool by himself when he hears a very small noise crying for help. He promises to help even though he doesn't know what or who they are. The only thing around is a small speck of dust floating through the air. So Horton thinks that there has to be some kind of creature on top of it that's just too small for an elephant to see. And he says, I'll just have to save him because, after all, a person's a person, no matter how small. Then along comes a sour kangaroo who doesn't believe that there could be a person on the speck of dust and makes fun of Horton, calling him the biggest blame fool in the jungle of Newell. Soon everyone in the jungle is making fun of Horton. 3 monkeys called the Wickersham brothers and an evil eagle steal Horton's dust speck and drop it in a field of clovers. Horton turns over each clover with care, hoping to find his dust speck. He found them at last after 3 million clovers. I like math, and I don't even think I could count to 3 million. Alas, the sour kangaroo and the Wickersham brothers and all their monkey friends return and threaten to cage Horton and burn the speck in a hot steaming kettle of bezelnut oil. Horton tries to get the town of Whoville to be as loud as they can to prove that they exist, but no one else can hear them. Don't give up, I believe in you all. A person's a person, no matter how small. The mayor of Whoville finds a small who named Jojo who lets out a very large yawp, which pulls their noise over the edge. At the end, everyone, including the sour kangaroo, agrees to protect the Who's with Horton. Our second principle is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We believe that all people should be treated fairly and kindly. This one I chose Yertle the turtle. Yertle the turtle was the king of the pond where the turtles had everything turtles might need, and they were all happy, quite happy indeed. But Yertle decides that the kingdom was too small, and he needs to sit higher to be a greater ruler. He orders 9 turtles to stand on top of each other as his new throne. He's happy for a while, but the turtle at the bottom, named Mac, starts to ask questions about how much longer they have to stand there and states that they are hurting. Silence, the king of the turtles barked back. I'm king, and you're only a turtle named Mac. You stay in your place while I sit here and rule. Yertle decides to build a throne even higher and pile up more turtles. Again, for a while, Yertle is happy, but Mac starts to voice his concerns. Your Majesty, please, I don't like to complain, but down here below we are feeling great pain. I know up on top you are seeing great sights, but down at the bottom we too should have rights. Yertle gets angry again and says that he is the greatest ruler and no one and nothing is higher than him. Much to his surprise, he spots the moon in the sky and wants to build an even taller throne. But Mac decided he'd taken enough. And he had, and that plain little lad got a little bit mad. He burps and shakes the throne of the king, knocking Yertle all the way down, which ends his rule, except he becomes the king of the mud instead. And the turtles, of course, all the turtles are free as turtles, and maybe all creatures should be. Our third principle is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. We believe that we should accept one another and keep on learning together. For this, I chose Oh, the Thinks You Can Think. This one was a little bit harder to find, as Dr. Seuss didn't really write much about religion, specifically in his books. However, I really liked the message about the limitless opportunities that we can dream up if we try. The story is filled with all the things you can think up if only you try. For example, you could think about schlop, beautiful schlop with a cherry on top. Think a race on a horse, on a ball with a fish. While our spiritual growth may not include schlop and races on top of balls and horses and fish, it's the thinks that count. So we can all encourage each other to think big and think different. Being creative with our thinks can help us solve more problems than we realize. Our fourth principle is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We believe that each person must be free to search for what is true and right in life. And for this, I chose Oh, the Places You'll Go. One very famous quote is, "You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own and you know what you know, and you are the guy who'll decide where to go." This is actually a book that's frequently given to graduating high school seniors that are moving on to the next phase in their life, but I think it really fits our search for truth and meaning as well. Wherever you fly, you'll be the best of the best. Wherever you go, you'll top all the rest. Except when you don't, because sometimes you won't. And I'm sorry to say so, but sadly it's true that bang-ups and hang-ups can happen to you. And the chances are then that you'll be in a slump. And when you're in a slump, you're not in for much fun. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. The story continues on a journey of ups and downs, all the places that life can take us. But it ends with a pretty nice summary that says, "You're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way." And the place that will go next is our joys and concerns.
Good morning. All right. I'm also a member of the Pastoral Care Associates Ministry. As we gather today, we pause to reflect on what lies in our hearts. In this time of sharing, we take a moment to recognize our personal joys and sorrows and to read from the book of joys and sorrows, those personal life events you have chosen to share with us. We have quite a few today. From Susan Perry, "My son, Michael Goodyear, is engaged to be married." From Lucia Amen, "Thank you to all the great volunteers that made our second time around sale a success." And that is seconded by Tom LeJudas, who says, "Amen, may it be so." Happy 76th birthday to Daryl Toady, who shares his birthday with Alice Martin. From Zachary, "My degree program has been approved, and I will graduate with my MA in Museum Studies this December." Alice Trailer, "A huge thank you to all the cooks who contributed to the bake sale. We made $748, yay." And the good news goes on. There is a wonderful article in the Dot newsletter to check out about our own Gates. Read it, he's a celebrity. And a joy, all the time, talent, and treasure given by congregants during the second time around sale. Thank you to Ethan Springer, who greeted shoppers and use his energy to lift heavy objects. Did we have anything online today?
Yeah, we have a couple.
Okay.
From Rita L. Coyne, we are grateful for the great book volunteers did for our congregation sale this past few days. Wonderful. And Teresa Guys says, joy for my friend Leslie, who is starting a new job in a new state.
Thank you. Thanks. Let us become aware of the energy that brings us together in beloved community as we share a time of silent meditation. May we open our minds and hearts to a place of quiet, to a silent prayer for the healing of pain and the comfort of love. For what has been shared and for what remains in the quiet sanctuary of our hearts, we are grateful. We close our meditation with the words of Ruth King, The Power of Equanimity. May I bear witness to things just as they are. May I remain peaceful and let go of fixation. May I offer care without hesitation, knowing I may be met with gratitude, anger, or resistance. May I offer care, knowing I don't control the course of life, suffering, or death. May I find the inner resources to genuinely contribute where needed. May I see my limits with compassion, just as I see the limits of others. I care about the pain of others, yet I cannot control it. I care for all things, but my way is not the only way. All beings have their own journey, and I have mine. May I be free from preference and prejudice. May I see the world with quiet eyes. And you're invited to come forward and light a candle during the musical meditation.
This congregation is supported by the pledges of our members and friends. The offering provides an additional opportunity for expressing generosity by those attending today's worship. We are sharing the plate offering this month with Quad City Interfaith. Please be as generous as you are able. So continuing on with the second half of our principles, the fifth principle is the right of conscience and the use of democratic process within our congregations and society at large. We believe that all persons should have a vote about things that concern them. This one stumped me. This was very tricky. There is a Dr. Seuss book. Technically, it's by The Cat in the Hat, but it's put out by his publishing company about how the Cat in the Hat should be the president and all of the Cat in the Hat shenanigans that he would do in the Oval Office if he was president. But I found a different one that I think fits a little bit better, and it's actually a very short board book for children called Every Voice Counts. So I'm just going to read you what that book says. Every voice counts. You can talk or sing or shout, loud or soft, your voice counts. You are unique. Your voice is unique. And when you join your voice with others, big things can happen. Use your voice to make change. Speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. Be a teacher. Be a leader. Use your voice to share ideas and your ears to listen to others. Maybe you'll learn something new. So open your mouth and your ears, because every voice counts. Our sixth principle is the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We believe in working for a peaceful, free, and fair world. This one was also a little bit tricky, but I decided to go with the Butter Battle book. There are lots of other stories that would also go with this, but I was trying to pick a different story for each one. So the lesson is there, you just have to search for it a little bit. In the Butter Battle book, there's a wall that divides the Ukes who eat their bread butter side up and the Zooks who eat their bread butter side down. The Ukes don't trust the Zooks because they spread butter underneath. They even have a Zook watching Border Patrol at the wall when it was shorter. One day, a Zook decides to slingshot the snickberry switch of the Ukes Border Patrol, and a battle ensues. Each side tries to be fancier than the other, each day coming back with a contraption bigger and better than the other side. The Ukes and the Zooks are all obeying their prospective leaders. The book ends with one Uke and one Zook, each holding a bomb over each other's side. The young boy, who is his grandfather, is the one that's holding the bomb for his side, says, "Who's going to drop it? Will you Or will he? Be patient, said Grandpa. We'll see. We will see. Which is actually the final line of the book. This story is mostly about a battle, but I challenge you to think about the bigger picture here, searching for were they really fighting for something important and how we can make a peaceful world from that. Our seventh principle is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We believe in caring for our planet Earth, the home we share with all living things. Now, this one was pretty obvious. I went with the Lorax here. It is very widely known as being an environmentally friendly, we should respect our environment book. This is one of his more popular stories. Most of you have probably heard it, so I'll try to keep it a little bit brief here. The story is actually told to a boy by the Onceler over a whisper phone about why the Lorax was taken away. He describes how he first came to this glorious place with the truffula trees and the brown barbaloots and the humming fish and the singing swans. The Onceler had been searching all his life for such soft trees, so he unloads his cart and builds a small shop. He cuts down the first truffula tree with one chop and knits a thneed. If you've never read the book, the thneed looks very similar to a sweater, but he talks about how it's such a useful invention because you can use it for everything. That's when the Lorax pops out of the stump of the tree he just chopped down and says, I am the Lorax, I speak for the trees. I speak for the trees have no tongues. The Lorax pleads with the Onceler to stop, but the Onceler wants his business to grow bigger and better. Eventually, the Lorax has to send the barbaloots and the fish and the swans away due to the fallout from the thneed factory. Then the very last truffula tree is cut down, and everyone is forced to leave except the Onceler. The Lorax left behind a pile of stones that said, unless. The Onceler tells the boy that he finally understands what that means. But now, says the Onceler, now that you're here, the word of the Lorax seems perfectly clear. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. Then the Onceler throws down the very last truffula seed. Plant a new truffula, treat it with care, give it clean water, and feed it fresh air. Grow a forest, protect it from axes that hack. Then the Lorax and all of his friends may come back. Our eighth principle is journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse and multicultural beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. For this one, I chose the Sneetches, and it starts out with a quote that says, "Those stars weren't so big. They were really so small. You might think such a thing wouldn't matter at all." In this story, there are star-belly Sneetches and plain-belly Sneetches. The star-belly Sneetches would brag about their stars and completely ignore the plain-belly Sneetches. Even their children were not allowed to play together. One day, a stranger named Sylvester McMonkey McBean drives up and promises to fix them at a very low price. For $3 each, the plain-belly Sneetches hopped right into his machine and came out with stars on their bellies. The original star-belly Sneetches were upset and believed that they were still the best Sneetches since they had their stars first, but are distraught because now they can't tell themselves apart. So McBean offers for them to go through the machine, $10 each this time, removing their stars since they're no longer in style. Those with stars still are now also invited into the star-off machine. Then, of course, from then on, as you probably guessed, things really got into a horrible mess. The Sneetches continue paying McBean to put their stars on and off, on and off. When all the Sneetches' money is gone, McBean packs up and leaves, thinking the Sneetches will never learn. But McBean was quite wrong. I'm quite happy to say that the Sneetches got really quite smart on that day. The day they decided that Sneetches are Sneetches and no kind of Sneetch is the best on the beaches. That day, All the Sneetches forgot about their stars and whether they had one or not upon theirs. Now you could choose to take all of these stories that I gave you at face value. Basically, I just told you a bunch of nonsense stories about made-up creatures. But if you choose to think a little bit deeper, you might actually see why these stories have been so successful over the years and what lessons they can all teach us. Now, if you would join us in our closing song, which is number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. Please stand if you're willing and able. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place. Now, if you'll join me in extinguishing our chalice, the words are in your order of service and up on the screen. We extinguish this flame,
but we keep its light in our hearts, with its message of love and justice, taken in outside these walls, to the world we live in, until we are together again.
Dr. Seuss was a great storyteller, not just because of his famous characters, but because he understood the role of children's literature. In a Los Angeles Times editorial from 1960, Geisel states, "Children's reading and children's thinking are the rock-bottom base upon which this country will rise, or not rise. In these days of tension and confusion, books for children have a greater potential for good or evil than any other form of literature on earth." During a time when a majority of children's books were boring and only designed to improve the mechanics of young readers, Geisel's storytelling delivered important messages while also encouraging a love for reading. His stories inspire us to have the hard conversations while also encourage us to have the hard conversations while also allowing for a sense of lightness and whimsy. I hope that when you leave here today, you can be inspired to tell your stories, no matter how silly they may seem, and maybe you can even teach some UU values in a new and fun way. As Dr. Seuss wrote, Remember that life's a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft. Will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98 3/4% guaranteed. Kid, you'll move mountains. Thanks, everybody.